Hi there. Welcome to the Schwowin's Nest. My name is Sandra, and I'm so glad you're here with me today. I have some Dollar Tree vinyl projects for you today. They are spring related, they are farmhouse style, and I'm starting off with this cute little wooden bunny. He's got some embellishments that are nice, but not my style. So I'm going to remove everything on him and give him a makeover. Now, if you have a Cricut machine and you've tried the Dollar Tree vinyl, let me know how it went for you. I don't find it works too well. It's a little on the thin side, but if you don't have a Cricut, don't pass up the Dollar Tree vinyl. I got this awesome buffalo check vinyl from the Dollar Tree. I picked up a whole bunch of them when they were in stock, and I'm using this to cover my bunny. So you're not limited to using vinyl for Cricut. You can use it just like contact paper. And with the inexpensive price at the Dollar Tree, you've got lots of different options to choose from. I'm just going to flip the bunny over and use my scissors and craft knife to cut off all of the excess. The bottom of the bunny, so the stand of it was a bright green. I painted it black just with my homemade chalk paint. And now I'm going to give it a little bit of a pocket. I want to be able to hold some carrots in there. So I'm taking a piece of drop cloth fabric and just hot gluing it into a nice clean square. And then I'll be gluing that right on top of the Dollar Tree vinyl to make a pocket. I'm folding in the edges of the drop cloth fabric and using hot glue to hold it in place. And I am trimming off the corner a little bit just because it's a little bulky and I don't want that to interfere with how it looks once I get it on the bunny. I still made the pocket a little too big, but I decided to just gather it down at the bottom a little bit so it would have a little bit of a poof to it. You can see me pushing it into the center like that. I'll just glue it down and it will look like it has a little bit of gathering down at the bottom. I pressed the two bottom corners down first and then just kind of crinkled it and glued the rest of it down too. Now the top portion is a little bit at an angle, so it seems a little bit wider than the bottom. So I just have to push it over and make it nice and straight when I glue it down. And that will give me a really loose pocket to put my carrots in. I'm going to try making a messy bow again. I am starting to get a little bit better with these. I'm using some black and white gingham ribbon, and that came from Michael's. I've cut up a few strips of the drop cloth fabric, nice and thin, and I have this other brown ribbon. Kind of looks like burlap, but it's really nice and soft. I got these glitter carrots at my local Dollarama store. They're a little bit larger than the ones you can get at the Dollar Tree. Of course, I don't like the glitter, so I'm using my honey brown paint and a stiff brush, and I'm just going to kind of pounce on it a little bit, paint up the majority of the carrot to cover up the glitter, but I do want some of that bright orange to kind of peek through, gives it a little bit more of a dimensional look. Once the carrots were dry, I pulled out that green, funky little paper and added some of this nice sort of asparagus fern, or maybe it looks a little bit like rosemary, but I thought it was the perfect complement to the carrots. The last thing I did is add a little stamp to the drop cloth fabric, and then I popped in those carrots, and this project is done. I'd like to take a quick sec and thank all of my current subscribers. I love you guys. I am so appreciative of each and every one of you for supporting my channel. If you are new to my channel and you like what you see, I would love it if you could hit that red button too. I've had this wooden tag sign in my stash for a while. You can see that it already had something done to it, but of course I didn't like that or it didn't sell. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a makeover. I'm just going to give it a couple of good coats of white chalk paint just to cover up mostly the dark grays down at the bottom. I'm going to use this wood cutout hello that I got from a local craft store and give it one coat of my walnut gel stain, just using a brush to apply it. I found a piece of scrapbook paper that looks like nice, beautiful brown wood, and I glued it with a glue stick just on the bottom third of the sign, as you see here. Now I'm taking my rough sanding block and I'm just going to sand off the edges to make it look more rustic. I'm also sanding all of the edges right down to the bare wood. I want some of that brown to peek through, so I'm going quite heavily and making sure that you can see the brown, especially on the corners and the edges. Using hot glue, I'm going to put the word down onto the sign just above where the brown paper is on the white paint and just off to the side a bit. I've got quite a few coats of paint on this white portion, so I'm taking one of these wood cutting tools that you can get in a pack at the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to scrape off the paint to bring the brown through. I don't like to sand when I've got this much paint on there because you just end up getting all sorts of scratch marks. So this is a really neat alternative to getting some old and aged distress marks on your piece. I'm using the same walnut stain and just dry brushing it over the white just to blend in those marks a little bit more. To add that buffalo check look, I'm using some of this gingham ribbon from Michaels, and I'm just going to glue it across the border between the brown paper and the white paint. I love the way this sign is looking. I think you could probably leave it this way, maybe just add a big bow on the top or just leave it plain, but I want to dress it up a little bit with some of my solo wood flowers. I'm going to use the ones that are called skinned, which means that there's some brown bark on them as well. And I have these pretty little tulips that I got in my last order with them. I haven't used them. I think I've had them for at least well, I don't know, a long time. Anyhow, I'm just working through my stash of what I have left of my Sola flowers, and I'm also going to add some of this little sort of turquoisey blue color into it. I think that just adds a little bit of a different spring look to this sign. Once I have the flowers the way I want them to look, you can see that it's kind of asymmetrical. I'm not an even sort of person when I do my florals, and I'm going to be adding some of this boxwood. I took it outside and I gave it a light dusting of white spray paint to make it look more like a lamb's ear color. So I love the look of lamb's ear with the Sola flowers. I think that's the perfect combination. And I'm going to keep adding some of these little leaves until I get it looking the way I like. To bring in more of the buffalo check design, I'm using some of this gingham ribbon again. I'm cutting little pieces that are probably about 2.5 to 3 inches in length, gluing them together to make little loops, and then I'm going to glue it inside the floral arrangement. And that's just going to bring out a little bit more of a coordination between the florals and the ribbon down underneath hello. Lastly, I made a sweet little two-loop bow with some larger gingham ribbon and hot glued that into the corner of the florals. I love how this sign turned out. You'll have to let me know what you think too. For this project, I'm using one of these Dollar Tree frames that have the wood grain in them really nicely, although they are plastic. I cut out a fresh backing for the picture, and now I'm going to be putting a piece of white cardstock right on top of the backing sheet, just using a glue stick. Using the Dollar Tree vinyl again, I cut out a strip of 2 blocks wide, and now I'm just going to be pressing it onto the right side of the paper, just folding it over in the back, really easy to do. And I'm going to do the same thing across the bottom, just to give this a little bit of an edged or a border look. I thought I was going to leave the frame brown, but then my idea evolved and I thought it would look better white. I'm just going to give it one coat and you can see all of that wonderful wood grain that's popping out, and it turned out perfect. For this portion of the project, I did use my Cricut Joy to cut out the shape of a mason jar. I won't be using transfer tape because this is basically just a big sticker. Don't worry if you don't have a Cricut, you can still achieve this by simply tracing out the shape of a mason jar onto the vinyl and cutting it out. I found a bunch of these sweet little floral rubber stamps at Michael's, and what I'm doing now instead of using ink, because I don't have this color of ink, is I'm just taking a little bit of paint and spreading it out on a piece of wax paper, and then very gently dabbing the rubber stamp in, and now I'm just going to press it right onto my paper. Again, not too firmly because I don't want it to be too blotchy because the paint does seep into some of the holes of the rubber stamp. But I think this is turning out really pretty. So I'm going to do a couple of different florals with this color, and then I'm going to add a little bit more of a gray into the paint to make it a little bit of a deeper color. Then I'm also going to use some of the other clear silicone stamps that I have. I've got one that looks a little bit like a lavender, so I'm going to add that in as well and just make a sweet little bouquet of purple flowers coming out of the mason jar. With the clear silicone stamp, I did tap it in really lightly and just made sure that it wasn't blotchy in any areas. So I did it a few different times. And then once I pressed it down, I would just very carefully just pushed down without moving it or shifting it. If you'd like to get some of these clear stamps, I'll have a couple of links down in my description box of ones that you can purchase on Amazon that are not that expensive, and they're similar to the IOD stamps but in a smaller form. Here's how it looks with all the different types of floral stamps that I used. You can see that some are darker and some are lighter. Now I'm going to be using this fan brush and just dipping it into a little bit of green paint and then just gently putting it down onto the paper, making it look like stems for the flowers. And then I'll also add some leaves. With the fan brush, I'm just placing it down. I'm not pressing at all, just letting it very lightly touch the paper so I get a tiny little line. To add a little bit more dimension to that bright white paper background, I'm using a chip brush and some dark gray paint and very gently just dry brushing along to give it the look of weathered wood or maybe just a little bit of age. I added a little ribbon to the front of the mason jar and put it back into the frame, and I think this turned out really sweet. Check out this adorable little garden box that looks like an Adirondack chair. I think it's absolutely adorable. What I am going to do to it though is change it up just a little bit. I want to add some legs. I'm going to use those large tumbling tower blocks that you can see there. They actually came from a game. But the first thing I need to do is just cut off the wood legs at the bottom so I have a flat, even surface to work with. Of course, I'm going to make him over by painting him with some white chalk paint. At first, I thought I would just do a rustic coat on it, just like one coat, kind of rough. And then I decided that I wanted to do two full coats and make him look pure white. Before I finished painting him, I realized that I needed to put the feet on because I wanted to paint those as well. I'm taking two of these blocks, gluing them together with some hot glue, and those will become the legs of the chair. I'm going to glue them onto the bottom portion, and I want the wood to stick out just a little bit around the outside of the planter box. I did use my Cricut Joy to cut out the word bloom, and now I'm going to apply that to the front of the garden box. It is going to pull up some of the paint, but I'm okay with that because I always like a rustic look, and then I'll just distress it to make it look even more rustic. If you don't have a Cricut Joy, you can definitely still do this with the letters. You just need to find something to either trace out or draw them freehand. I'm using a Sharpie oil-based paint pen just to trace around the letters. Some of the white areas and those grayish areas kind of got lost with the white background, so this made them pop a little bit more. There's a couple of different ways you could add some florals to this little box. It's already lined, so you could use some real dirt and put a live plant in there. You could use the floral foam like I'm doing, but you could also just set a pot inside, and then it could be real flowers or artificial flowers, and you could change it out for the seasons. I'm going to use these delicate little flowers that are on sort of a hanging and floppy bush. These come from the Dollar Tree and they're also available in a beautiful purple shade. I'm going to trim off the leaves because I don't want to use those. I have some other leaves in mind to add to this. I'm just going to poke them into the floral foam until it's looks the way I like it to be. And for the final touch, I'm going to add a double loop gingham bow into the front of it and make it have a little bit more of a buffalo check look. I also distressed the edges of the box and the rails. Everything got distressed, so it was nice and rustic looking. I hope you love this little planter as much as I do. I really hope you enjoyed the projects I created today. They were a lot of fun to make. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. That lets YouTube know that you like what I'm putting out there and they promote me more, which helps my channel grow. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.